Hello, this is David D. Hilster, a critical thinker, dissident scientist, and if you are not buying exactly what mainstream physics and cosmology are selling, then this is the place for you. There are thousands and thousands of scientists from around the world that have been working outside the mainstream for decades and who have identified problems, fixed those problems, and who are proposing new theories and models. You won't find anything like this on the internet or on YouTube, so you want to make sure you want to go down below, click the subscribe button, and right next to it the little bell, and you'll be alerted to our next videos coming out. Today I'm going to show you an article that is of interest to us outside the mainstream, because to us this gives us more evidence that the expansion tectonics, Earth expanding and Earth gaining mass, is actually a viable theory, and that we're looking for evidence for that. But of course, what you're going to see in this mainstream article, and I'm going to point out the little details, they will not even come close to this. I'm not even sure any of them have, any of these people have even a consciousness of the idea of expansion tectonics, let alone the Earth is expanding, let alone the Earth is gaining mass, and let alone things are being manufactured inside the Earth and they come to the surface, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The ice crystals in diamonds reveal pockets of water deep in the Earth's mantle. Of course, this is a problem because the water is all supposed to come from the outside, externally, either from comets when the Earth was formed, and that is a really big problem with mainstream science. Why? In cosmology? Because they can't figure out where that came from. They just said there's just not enough ice from comets and all that stuff to really have filled the oceans. But of course, if you are a person who's an expansion tectonicist, you know that the Earth is smaller and growing. You also know that there are things being manufactured in the Earth and that mass is increasing at a subatomic level, that the atoms are being manufactured. Oh, that's a crazy idea. Well, then what about the crazy idea that the sun's doing exactly the same thing? So inside the sun is a furnace, inside the Earth is a furnace, then, well, then it's the same thing, isn't it? So that's what we believe, and that we believe that water, in fact, is manufactured inside the Earth, and methane, and abiotic oil. Oil is not crushed dinosaurs. We'll talk about that in another video. But anyways, that's what they're saying. And let's take a look at their article and see how they have this perspective that this is coming from the outside. Of course, they're talking about the super strong, brilliant crystals of carbon atoms produced under the Earth's crushing pressures are typically valued by their beauty and durability. But scientists also value for another reason. They contain kinds of hidden messages about the Earth's mantle. You just need to look in the right place. And these messages, of course, are water. An international team of scientists have decoded one of those messages, which came in the form of high-pressure ice crystals present in diamonds. Perhaps confusingly, this ice is a sign of liquid water from deep in the mantle. Of course, confusingly, I guess it's ice, but it's in the mantle, it's hot. Maybe that's the confusing part, although the confusing part is, why is it deep inside the mantle? Because water is supposed to be there. These diamonds could help researchers understand just how much water hides beneath the planet's surface. I put the word, circled the word hides, because it's sort of like the idea that it came from somewhere and hid somewhere. They don't, that's sort of in their decoding of this is from the external, it's not internal. It says, one essential question that we're working on is how much water is actually stored in the mantle. And notice they say stored. Again, rain comes and you store it in a basin. That's kind of the idea. So the whole language is geared to this idea that it comes from externally and not manufactured internally. And we'll take a look at the end of this shorter video today about this, and what we have to say about that. The mantle is a layer of mostly solid, very hot rock and immense pressure beneath the crust. It makes up a bulk of the Earth's volume. It's got an upper layer, a transition zone, a lower layer. The upper layer is has a little bit of water, but the scientists estimate 10 times more water may be in the transition zone, and where the minerals seem to be more soluble. Again, listen to that. Well, soluble means it can hold water, but again, this idea that it probably seeped into that, that's what they're trying to say. Of course, they're not saying anything about it because they don't know. So you get this sort of, well, tell me why they don't. Okay, we go to the next slide. It says another researcher involved in this paper, Katie Kelly from the University of Rhode Island, thought it was interesting geologically. Researchers previously thought that plate tectonics subducting into the Earth's Earth were bone dry, but perhaps they're bringing down water into the mantle with them. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this. Expansion tectonics says there can be some subduction. Subduction is if you have the Earth, here it is. If you have this Earth and it's got all these plates on it, these are just colored plates. You can see Africa there. And what happens is that to stay at a same radius, the expanding, you can see the expansion marks here. You can see them. It's clearly here. This is the Atlantic Ridge right here. There it goes. There. And that's expanding is happening. Well, it's got to be taken away for the Earth. Oh, we have to keep it the same radius, and that's where we have a big difference. To keep it the same radius, it's got to duck under. So it's coming up and coming out, and then ducks under like this. It's called subduction. And they think, oh, well, it's bone dry. Well, maybe it's taking water with it. Well, that's the reason. The reason they're saying that is because, one, they believe that the Earth's radius is staying the same. They believe in subduction at a very, very high scale. Of course, they can't explain the problem of that there's only about 30% subduction zones when they need 70% more to even come close to trying to subduct and get rid of all that new seafloor bed, whereas the expansion tectonics, nope, sorry, it is getting bigger, which is much more sane in my opinion, has much more data that points to that. So let's go on, and oh, we already saw that one. That's a repeat of it. So what I want to tell you is, what do we say about it? And what we say about it is that, in fact, water is coming from the interior of the Earth. It doesn't come from comets. And in fact, well, is it happening, Dave? How could it happen? If the Earth's expanding, that means the oceans are getting bigger and there's more water. There's got to be more waters. Well, looky here. Here's a picture. Something we found only in the 70s, I think late 60s or maybe even the early 70s, and they are called smokers, black smokers, white smokers, whatever. And what's happening? Water is coming out where the crust is opening up. So it just happens to be, and this is one of the most peculiar things about expansion tectonics, is as the Earth is getting bigger and is expanding, water that's being manufactured in the Earth is coming up. So this is new water. You see this is new water coming in the oceans, and it's filling up, and that's why when these oceans have stayed, pretty much the same. Of course, yes, the levels have changed back further in time. Of course, the Earth was smaller and there was less water. As it's expanding, you get more water, and that's how the oceans are pretty much staying very much the same. And what do we call these things? Well, these things are called hydrothermal vents. And a hydrothermal vent is a fissure in a planet's surface from which geothermically heated water issues. Now, this is really interesting because it says issues, which means it's coming out. They, maybe they're trying to keep people under their heads in the sand or something. There's issues is not a very common word for the average person who likes science, and that's where water is coming out of these what we call smokers. They can see them right here. You can see black smokers right there, right there. And if you read further, it says they were discovered in 1977. Oh my gosh. Hydrothermal vents are commonly found near volcanically active places, areas where tectonic plates are moving apart, that's what I said, spreading centers, ocean basins, and hotspots. And they say hydrothermal vents exists because the Earth is both geologically active and large amounts of water on its surface and within its crust. They do not tell you why. They just say it's there. And of course, if you're a student, you go, teacher, I got a question. How did it get there? But don't ask those questions. Don't ask those questions. Well, this is an article, and this is a way that we who see our model, expansion tectonics, Earth's small, other bodies are small, they are gaining mass as part of the in this case, a lot of people say because of gravity, the way gravity works, and the way the whole universe works, that nucleons from atoms are blown apart by the sun, they get sucked up into the Earth, they get joined together with electrons, and they form new atoms. And these new atoms are forming. Well, they form stuff. You get more mass. You get more reaction inside the Earth, and that thing is expanding. It's probably both thermal expansion, nuclear expansion, but also mass expansion. And with that expansion, you produce methane. You place water. You produce oil. And that's why when we go down, we're finding oil way down there. Lots of methane, lots of oil. Yeah, it's hard to believe that too soaked down. All those dinosaurs made it that far around, and we keep pumping it and keep going deeper. We keep finding it. Well, that's why people call it abiotic war. But again, this whole article gives us why is this interesting to we critical thinkers? Because they're saying, wow, we're finding water way down, and it's not supposed to be there. Are there maybe any other explanations? Instead of saying, well, it's got to come from the top and we got to push it down through subduction, or how to get down there, there's some process or whatever. Well, maybe there's a whole nother idea out there. And that's expansion tectonics for you. So I hope that gives you an idea of how we look at these. When I look at this is exactly how I read these articles, and I'm trying to give you, the same take on this. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to show you guys different points of view from people outside the mainstream and the way we think. And remember, you just really don't want to listen to me or anybody else outside the mainstream. You don't never want to take anything on faith. You want to stay critical. You want to stay thinking. And now I'm Dave D. Hilster. I'm your science therapist, if I can even say the word right. Ciao for now.